Crimson Days, Destiny 2's latest live event, is getting close to being over. But how was it? Was this live event a great addition to Destiny 2? Was it okay, or did it suck? Let's talk about it. What is up, guys? Rick Kakis here, and today, yes, we are going to be discussing Crimson Days. Now, Crimson Days is only the second live event to hit Destiny 2, the first, of course, being The Dawning. And The Dawning was frankly terrible. Like, the community outrage for that first live event was palpable. People just did not like that live event, and for good reason. Nearly everything was hidden behind Eververse. It was clearly a cash grab. If it could be described as anything, it would be that. Although there was some fun to be had, throwing snowballs was awesome, it was clearly just so focused on Eververse. But Bungie did have a chance to redeem themselves with Crimson Days. So did they? Well, in terms of it being too Eververse focused, I would say, yeah, they actually did a pretty good job shifting Crimson Days away from Eververse. Firstly, you get Crimson Engrams just by leveling up. So in the process of doing whatever you want to do, you're going to get those Crimson Engrams. Also, the actual playlist of Crimson Doubles, which is the new game mode added for this live event, that drops Crimson Engrams pretty regularly. Like, I've gotten quite a few myself. I've known people who've gotten quite a few. If you grind that for an hour or two, you will get several Crimson Engrams, unless you are incredibly unlucky, but, you know, that's RNG for you. So they seem to be pretty reasonable at giving out the Crimson Engrams, and the Crimson Engrams have a knockout list, so you won't get the same item twice in a row, which is absolutely fantastic. And compared to other games, most notably Call of Duty, I actually praised Call of Duty's Resistance event, but they halfway through added 2 more guns and diluted the loot pool beyond recognition. Like, you just get nothing but duplicates over and over again. It is absolutely insane how much crap they've shoved into the supply drops in Call of Duty in order to basically make it so that it's nearly impossible to get what you want. But Bungie and Destiny 2 are doing basically the opposite of that, having not too many items, and then again having that knockout list is going to make it viable for completionists to get what they want. Now, this is all great. Like, this is all good news, because when it comes down to it, I know people are absolutely hating on Destiny 2 right now, and I don't blame them. Destiny 2 has made a lot of mistakes, and if you are someone who's disenfranchised, I cannot say that you're wrong, or I cannot say that that's unreasonable. But looking at what happened with The Dawning, and all of the Eververse stuff there, and then looking to what Bungie has done with Crimson Days, and seeing all of the stuff I've previously mentioned happen, it's undeniable that this is a huge improvement over The Dawning. That Crimson Days came about, offered all of these things, and even offered rewards like the Diesel Punk exotic ornament for the Wardcliff coil that you get for doing specific activities. In that case, doing the raid, or the single ladies dance for doing the Nightfall. That's good. That is really good, and that is now the standard going forward for the next live event, which is fantastic. However, even with all of these improvements, was Crimson Days enough? Did it really positively impact Destiny 2? And that's a really interesting question. And of course, that's going to differentiate based on who you asked. Some people watching this video are saying, how dare you even ask that question? Crimson Days is fantastic. What is this guy talking about? He's just a hater. Other people are already commenting that trash game. Why are you covering this trash game? By the way, trash game, right? Like, it really depends on who you ask. But looking at the content, looking at the improvements, you really have to wonder if Destiny 2 was in a good position right now. Let's say it had random rolls, let's say it had an end game, let's say it truly improved off Destiny 1, and everyone was enjoying Destiny 2 right now, and it had this exact Crimson Days live event, I think most people would view this as a positive, honestly. Most people would say, okay, there's a bunch of new cool ornaments to collect, there's a bunch of neat sparrows to collect, there's just a bunch of stuff I can collect, I can utilize, and it's just a fun little live event. And the Crimson Doubles playlist, which we'll talk about in just a sec, that's another positive addition. Like, if you look at that Crimson Doubles playlist, that is actually spicing up PvP quite a bit. I actually really enjoy Crimson Doubles. I think the ability spam is just a little too high. I think they wanted to increase it, but they went just a little bit too far, because if you are playing a Titan with double pulse nades, you never have to stop throwing grenades. Ever, ever, ever. And invisible hunters are somehow they're even more annoying than they already are, so that's a thing. But no, in all seriousness, the Crimson Doubles playlist is a good bit of fun, especially if you've got a friend you're playing with. It's a blast. And also adding a new map, like putting a new PvP map into rotation, people who grind PvP, that's awesome for them. Completely for free, another new map to play. So again, if Destiny 2 was in a good position and this exact Crimson Days was added as it is, I think the community would be relatively positive towards it. And therefore, Bungie, you did a decent job. You certainly did a better job than the Dawning. But there's a big but. And that big but is the fact that Destiny 2 is not in a good position right now. And everyone knows that. Like, the player base has dropped by 80-90%, depending on where you look. Trials is down to like the lowest point ever, lower than any point in Destiny 1. It's not good for Destiny 2 right now. The game is not completely worthless of spending your time, but it's not in a good position. And therefore, we have to judge it with what's really happening right now. And if you judge it through the scope of how the game is doing, Crimson Days looks significantly less impressive. Especially when you look at the fact that Crimson Days didn't add any meaningful loot. And by meaningful loot, I'm talking about loot that impacts gameplay, not cosmetics. Yes, Crimson Days added some neat looking cosmetics, but that's it. Every single exotic, every single new thing added within Crimson Days, aside from, of course, the actual playlist and the new map, is just cosmetic. Once Crimson Days goes away, none of that stuff will impact your gameplay whatsoever. And therefore, I've seen a ton of people, like in the comment section on Twitter, wherever, saying, well, I'm not coming back for this. And that frankly makes perfect sense. If you've stopped playing Destiny 2, for a bunch of reasons, I doubt you're going to come back for cosmetics. And even if you are someone who came back for Crimson Days, the second Crimson Days is gone. Again, PvP, it goes back to the same thing. We're back to Uriel's gifts, right? We're back to the same old, same old. PvE as well. Nothing really changed there. And Bungie's going to have to realize this. They cannot just rely on cosmetics. So much stuff in the game is just cosmetic. The entire Prestige raid was all cosmetic rewards. And that absolutely killed the raid community. That just put a huge damper on most people's will to do the Prestige raid. If you look at people's raid completions, normal mode they've got like a bunch, like the hardcore raiders. Prestige mode they've got 1, 2, 3. Like, people just do not care about these cosmetic rewards. And when you take a step back and look at in Destiny 1, the hard mode raid rewards included stuff like the Fatebringer, and everyone was trying to get the Fatebringer. People were going out of their way, searching on LFG, trying again and again just to get that gun, because it's practical loot that impacts gameplay, and it's really desirable loot. So at this point, I think it's extremely evident that Bungie is going to have to change their tactic, that the community is just not going to be satisfied with nothing but cosmetic rewards for these live events. And so, when we talk about the next live event, whenever that's going to be, it's going to need to be something similar to the April update. The April update in Destiny 1 was, in my opinion, the best live update ever. I think, honestly, for what it did for the game at that time, was potentially even more impactful than the Age of Triumph. I know that's a big claim to make, and I'm certainly not saying the Age of Triumph wasn't a huge addition, but the April update completely revitalized the game. It brought a bunch of the old Year 1 weapons into the new Year 2 infusible loot pool, and you could get them through leveling up your Vanguard or Crucible or whatever. Stuff like the LDR and the Longbow Synth were now available in the game. Super desirable weapons. It completely remade the Prison of Elders, added a bunch of new loot, but the main thing is just that new loot. It added so much desirable loot to the game that people, and this was a time that Destiny 2 was not doing well. In fact, funny enough, guys, the thing that came just before the April update was Crimson Days for Destiny 1. And Crimson Days for Destiny 1 also introduced the doubles playlist, and it just relied on cosmetic rewards, and many people were dissatisfied. And at that time, like, the Division was coming out, the community was really unsure and unhappy with the state of Destiny 2, where we were basically at not exactly the same position as we're at with Destiny 2 now, but in D1 at that time, just after Crimson Days, the community was really worried. What are you going to do? This game's boring. There's nothing to do. We can't rely on cosmetics. And Bungie fixed that with the April update by adding tons of weapons, tons of desirable stuff that people wanted to go after and earn. And it's the same thing that's happening now. And we need another April update style of live event. If Bungie tries to do another Crimson Days or another Dawning type live event where it just has nothing but cosmetics, I think the game is really going to suffer, and I think that's just not enough, especially now that we can't rely on random rolls to keep people playing. Bungie made the decision for static rolls, and the only way to spice up a static roll loot pool is to add a ton of new weapons. That is the only way to do that. Alright, so Bungie, if you don't have the time or the resources to develop a bunch of new weapons, then go back to random rolls, because you don't have an option. You have to spice up the loot pool. It's stagnant as heck. The only way to do so is to add new weapons. You should have thought about that before you went onto static rolls. You don't have a choice. It's do or die at this point. So with all of that being said, looking at Crimson Days, does it suck? Is it a bad addition to the game? As many people, I'm sure, have already claimed in the comments section, I can't say that, because it's not true. Like, it did do a bunch of good things. A lot of people are on the game. I've been playing Destiny 2 more now because of Crimson Doubles, because of trying to get some of the cool ornaments and stuff. It's not terrible. It really isn't terrible, but it's not enough. That's the thing. It's not enough. At this point, good isn't good enough. We're starting from a negative position. We're starting from so many people have left the game. There's so many problems with Destiny 2 that every time Bungie is going to do one of these live events from this point forward, they're going to need to bring it. They're going to need to do the extra step, go the extra mile. I'm talking like new exotic quests and stuff for live events. And again, that's insane to ask. That's going to take a lot of development time. But at this point, there's no other option. Because we're going to need a massive influx of changes and content to get Destiny 2 moving on the right path. And once it's on the right path, then we can talk about having live updates featuring only cosmetic rewards. But not until then. And so guys, that's it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please remember to help me out by simply rating and especially sharing this video. If you guys want to see more Destiny 2 content similar to this, don't be afraid to slap that subscribe button. And if you guys want to get in touch with me and keep up to date with the latest channel activity, the best way is to follow me on Twitter at RickKakis. That's linked in the description down below, as is my Twitch channel, which you can also follow. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and as always, have a good day.